Hi everyone, welcome to season 21 of Master Duel. Huge disclaimer, I am not a content creator, so forgive me for the poor editing, probably going to stutter here and there, and yeah, I might say a lot just because, well, this isn't really a prepared thing. The reason I'm making this video is because, well, as you can see on the screen, I made Master 1 with Mathmech, which I consider a huge achievement. I posted this deck list to Master Duel Meta just to kind of share how I did the deed, how I made the distance. And unfortunately there is a character limit on the notes section within Master Duel Meta, which I completely understand. I'm sure they don't want people writing books about how they got to Master 1, because it's not really that relevant. But for people who do care or are interested in playing this deck, whether they know it or not, I just thought it'd be nice to make this video and kind of walk through my deck list specifically, and the reason I chose certain cards, and maybe some of the scenarios that I faced and why I chose certain cards, because there were certain questions in the comment section and I was more than happy to answer them, but I felt maybe I wasn't doing a great job, and so I just thought it'd be good to make this video. But again, not a content creator, so I'm just going to jump straight in and show you what I have. As a whole, this is the main deck list. As you can see, this is just everything together. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it into sections. So I'll start with the main engines at Mathmech, show the support cards, so all these here, show the Handtraps, which are, as you can see in front, and then just go into the spell and traps and then extra deck. I just thought it'd be easy to explain bit by bit, and that way I guess it's a lot easier for myself to kind of organize what I'm going to say to you as well. So yeah, so I suppose the first thing is the engine. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the Mathmech engine. I'm just going to explain why I have the number of each card as to what. If you have any questions about the actual Mathmech cards and the combo line itself, I'll probably do a separate video on that just to kind of help out. But I'm in no way, shape or form trying to get into content creation. I think the guys who do it are, have a lot of time to do it, and I really admire the efforts that go into editing. So I'm not quite that skilled yet, so but I'm just gonna go through it as it is now. So always play 3 circular. You really want to see this card in your opening hand. It just is a 1-card combo. Essentially you send Sigma for cost, resummon Sigma, trigger circular, search for superfactorial, and then Allen Burschen, diameter, etc, etc. So yeah, you want to play 3 circular all the time. I don't know why I'm going from this direction left, but circular really is the main card. Diameter, so diameter is arguably the second best Mathmech going in, because basically having him as material for either your Xyz monsters or your synchro monsters, Xyz in this case because I don't play Final Sigma now, I'll touch on that later. They get this carry-on effect of once per turn during the turn that the Xyz monster in this case was special summoned. When your opponent activates a card or effect, so it's an Omni negate, you can negate that effect, and that is incredibly strong in so many matchups. The only thing you need to be aware of is that against cards like what's a good example? Crackdown. So for those who don't know what Crackdown is a continuous trap card that takes control of one of your monsters. So if your opponent activates it, they can target a monster. It's not non-targeting. Target a monster that you control and take control of it. Now if you use the effect of diameter through the Xyz monster that exists, it won't actually negate the effect. So because it's continuous and you're not destroying the card, the effect can reactivate at a later point, which really sucks, because I've had it done to me before, where before Terahertz was out, I had my access code stolen from me, so and that just kind of ended the game from there really. So, but it's only happened once, but I did learn a lot from that scenario. I didn't realize that it wouldn't negate the effect for the turn. It really is just that effect, and they can reactivate. It's almost like if you use Ash against someone using Gamma, it works the first time, but the second time you activate a monster effect, they can reactivate Gamma, and then yeah, it will just negate and destroy whatever monster that activated its effect. But yeah, so just be aware of that. Another kind of scenario I would say to be aware of is Numeron. So when they activate that field spell that allows it to act as a spell that they send to the graveyard, you don't want to negate the activation, let them activate it, and then as soon as they try to trigger the effect, then you negate it, because at that point they can't reactivate that effect because it's not a continuous effect. It really is a one-time thing. So that's when you can use Diameter's effect through the Xyz monster, ideally Lapilation in this case. And then, yeah, you'll negate the effect and it should kill their board unless they manage to top deck the actual spell they're looking for. So yeah, works from there. Multiplication. So this card is amazing for your OTK line, like really the best card, because it doubles the damage, it doubles the attack, sorry, of the monster that you have in the extra monster zone. But I consider this card to be such a brick if you see it in your starting hand. You never want to see it in your starting hand, because the Mathmech combo at the minute, the OTK line, is better with Terahertz, and then you send this card to the graveyard, double the attack of Terahertz, and then you just swing in for game, because it should have around 11,000 damage, can be 16,000 damage. But like I said, when you have this in your opening hand, at some point you need to summon it, send it to the graveyard by triggering the effect, and it can just really mess with the combos because you already want to have circular Diameter in hand rather than this card. And if you have Diameter and Multiplication in your hand, it's even more bricky because both are normal summon monsters, so you're really in a really like tough situation there. But yeah, that's why I only play one really. I don't play Nabla just because I find, again, it's another normal summon monster. With Cyburst monsters, you really just want extenders who can special summon themselves. Sigma is that if there's no monster in the extra monster zone, and it can come in clutch in like later rounds if they clear that extra monster zone monster that you control. But essentially you only want, I can only afford, should I say, these two to be normal summon monsters. Everything else has to be special summon extenders, and it doesn't even matter if they lock you into Cyburst monster, because this is a Cyburst deck as a whole. So that's the reason I play one of these and I don't play Nabla. You can play Nabla. It is great for securing Diameter. If you do brick, use Parallel Exceed, sorry, to go into Alimbertion, grab Circular, send Nabla as cost, and then use Alimbertion to tribute itself to get Nabla, trigger Circular effect, get Super Factorial, use Nabla to tribute either itself or probably better itself, just in case you get impermed. Tribute itself, get Diameter, and now you have the 3 monsters that you need for Super Factorial to be in effect. But what I like to do, and I will show in a combo video, is I use Terahertz to send Diameter either on the turn, on the first turn when I summon him, or the next turn, because it doesn't actually matter when you summon, send it to the graveyard. It's just the fact that you send him there before you use Super Factorial and have that third monster in. But again, I'll touch on that in a moment. And then yeah, like I said, with these two, addition and subtraction, they're just special summon monsters, and it's just great to have them because that way you're not using your normal summon, which ideally you want to save for Diameter. Or if you don't see this card in your hand, there are other extenders which I can go into in a moment that help you get into the rest of your actual combo mainline. So that is the main engine, and yeah, I'll just leave that at that. Next is the, so I've labeled them support and extenders here, just one and the same really. It's just to keep your combo line going. So I'll start from the left this time and not the right. So Dotscaper itself, the reason why this card is so great is that if sent to the graveyard for whatever reason, it will come back from the graveyard. It will just special summon itself basically. And you can do that in 2 ways. One is either using Signet Mining, which is a great added bonus. So you send this as the cost, and then you can go into use Signet Mining to find whatever Cyburst monster you actually want. In most cases, it's going to be Mathmech Circular or sometimes Microcoder, depending on what you need in the situation. And it will just summon itself back, and it's great. It also has a banish effect, so if this card is banished, you can special summon it. For some reason, I don't play Small World now, but when I used to, and I banished Dotscaper and then another, you know, I forgot the word for it, but I'd say middleman to get to the card that you need. For some reason, it wouldn't summon itself back. Maybe someone in the comments can explain that to me, because I honestly am at a loss as to why that doesn't work, but it has never summoned itself back from being banished. So, but it's not a big deal. It's still a great card either way. Great to extend the combo to get into the further boss monsters that you need. Microcoder. So this card is, in my opinion, the most important card after your main Mathmech combo, because when you send this card as material for a code talker monster, as you can see here, I'm not going to go read the whole thing word for word, but you basically get a spell or trap, and the trap that you want is Signet Conflict. So if I just go on related cards, find it here, this card itself is the strongest Omni Negate that this deck has, and I find it, what I find crazy is that when I see people enter the tournaments for Decade, if you don't know him, he's the one who actually hosts the site for Muscle Metal, or the founder at least. They don't try to go into this combo, and this card itself is incredible. It's a counter trap, so nothing can respond to it unless they have Red Reboot, which I find highly unlikely, because a lot of people aren't really trying to negate this and then let you put on, you know, a normal trap, and in most cases is going to be imperm, because it just puts them at a weaker spot unless they can OTK you. Again, highly unlikely, but it's never happened to me anyway, but it can happen, but that's the only scenario where it would happen anyway. But look, I'll touch on that in a moment. Anyway, but yeah, Microcoder is that card to get the Signet Conflict. So it is really important that you get this card either in your hand. It is better in your hand, but having it in the graveyard is also good as well, because part of the combo line is to get Splash Mage, get create Terahertz without using Splash Mage's effect, and then using Terahertz to send Microcoder to the graveyard, using Splash Mage to get Microcoder out the graveyard, creating Decode Heat Soul, I think. Oh, it's on my right here. Yeah, Decode Talker Heat Soul. And because it's a Code Talker monster, it will trigger the effect, and then you get Signet Conflict. And then you also get 2 additional draws, so you get 1 on your turn and then the beginning of your opponent's turn. So great card economy, as well as you getting the counter trap that you really need. So I play backup Secretary, just because, as simple as it is, it really is a great extender. It just special summons itself without activating any effect. If you just control a Cyburst monster, you just summon this card and it's great, you're back in the combo line. Code Generator. Now, I played this card last season, as well as with Lady Debug. The reason I don't play Lady Debug anymore is because it really does cost your normal summon. Before Terahertz, it was kind of essential, because a lot of people, well, it's good to bait out the Ash as well, but it does take up your normal summons, so going into that main Mathmech combo line, it can complicate it, but it is level 4, so it's debatable here and there. Depends what tickles your fancy, really, however you take it going. But the reason why I keep Code Generator and why it's so amazing is that when this card is used as material for a Code Talker monster, this card can be used as link material from your hand as well, same as Coda. Now, depending on where you are within the combo, you can either send Microcoder, which hugely beneficial, because then you go back into the Signet Conflict point I was making earlier. Or if you're going for game, I would send Dotscaper, and then, like I said earlier, resummons itself, and then you have an extra body on board to create the higher links. Because if you don't know about link summoning, everything is about having more and more bodies on the board. And if I was saying this to a friend the other day, if this card was level 2, this card would be broken, because the ability to go into Update Jammer access code would be a lot quicker. And I'd put it on par with playing against Terahertz, because Terahertz is just send one monster, multiplication, and then, swing for damage. But yeah, Code Generator, great card. And in some scenarios, I have used it to send my last Mathmech monster to the graveyard if I'm running short on the materials to have it for Super Factorial, and I wasn't able to go into Terahertz. The most important thing at the end of the day is having minimum 1 Code Talker monster, link monster, on the board, and then having Signet Conflict. That I can't highlight enough how good that counter trap is. It does just protect you from anything. Bestials are a huge problem for Mathmech. they banish anything on their turn or our turn, really puts us in a sticky spot, because even if you have super factorial, those 3 bodies are required. So terahertz does help that, but having the omni negate on their turn, they cannot respond to it, like I said. So as soon as you trigger super factorial and they try to, more often than not, it's always going to be Druris Worm. That's the most annoying one. Druris Worm you just silent conflict, and then it will allow you to pull minimum 1 card from their hand. So, well, 1 card from their hand and then maybe something from the board, depends on what they've placed already. Parallel Exceed, quite a common card within link summoning, but if you don't know, basically once you link summon a monster, this card will special summon itself from your hand to a zone that your link monster points to, and then additionally on summon it will give you the option to summon another one of itself to the field in attack or defense position from your deck. So you basically get 2 of these on board, but they won't be level 8, they'll be level 4, which is perfect for the Mathmech line, because if you don't open up with your Mathmechs, you can go into Alan Bershin, and then Alan Bershin go for search for circular, and then, you know, the combo line from that. But yeah, this card itself, if you have circular and this card in your hand and you break through all of the interruptions or have the out for all of the interruptions from your opponent, you will be able to create the strongest end board that this archetype has. Only for the time being, there is a fusion Cyburst monster that hasn't been released yet, and once it does, then yeah, the end board will be different from there. But as we have it now, and we also don't have Firewall, completely forgot about that. Firewall support, I think it's Firewall Defensor that we're waiting for. Once that card comes in, yeah, this deck list is going to be completely different for sure. And then lastly, so this card, I saw it on a whim from somebody else's video, and it's honestly been one of my favorite cards in this deck. So I didn't think, so whenever I did see it in my hand, I did need it. It was really strange. So whenever I didn't see it, I didn't need it. When I did see it, I did. So essentially it special summons itself by negating 1 Cyburst monster that you have. Obviously do it after you've used the effects of the Cyburst monster you have, and it just special summons itself. And then once it leaves the field, you can target 1 monster on the field and it will be completely unaffected by just activated effects, I think. Yeah, that target is unaffected by your opponent, not even activated effects, just all card effects. It's completely unaffected by all your opponent's card effects until the end of their turn. So it's huge. I'm just trying to think of a scenario where I've done it. I mean, the most basic scenario is that I created terahertz using this card as material, and then someone tried to Ghost Ogre me, and like I said, look, completely unaffected, and it just swung through for game. So it was truly a clutch card, this card. And yeah, but only have 1, because the effects are, you can only summon one of these per turn. So yeah, look, it being a level 8, it's going to be very tough to get to, and there's no really any reason to have 2 on the board anyway. So yeah, I would just stick for 1. But yeah, that's support and extenders. So I'm just going to move on to the next bit. Okay, so for hand traps, I'm not really going to spend too much time on this because these are quite self-explanatory, but I'll give a short case scenario for each one. I'll start from this end because I do want to give like a good scenario for Duel. So Imperm is simple as it is. You can activate it from hand if you control nothing, so it's a great negate. It also negates the effects of the monster even if they go to the graveyard, which is huge because I've had my Alan Bershin Impermed before, and I didn't know that this effect lingers into the graveyard for the rest of the turn. So when I try to tribute Alan Bershin and summon a diameter from my hand just to kind of extend the combo, yeah, it didn't work because it's completely negated. So I was left with an open board, and I ended up scooping because yeah, I just had no more plays. But yeah, so that's great. If you're going to set this on the field, I always set them in the far left or the far right column. You never know when you're going to play against Pendulum, and to be able to lock off their Pendulum zones is a humongous benefit to you because everything they do has to work within those like lanes, or columns, so to speak. So yeah, definitely always put this in the far left or the far right. I don't know if that's a given rule, but I always do that, and whenever the situations come up, yeah, I've really never failed to kind of thrive in it. Cross-out designator. So if you don't know what this is, it's basically an omni negate for any card that you have in your deck that your opponent might. That's why it's great for like hand traps, including Call by the Grave as well. This card is coming clutch against Imperm and Call by the Grave, and then of course against Maxi and Ash as well. So yeah, I definitely recommend having this. It's always good to have as many forms of negate against Maxi. You could play Gamma, but Gamma has been such a brick for me. I hate having the normal monster in my hand. If I can remember what it's called. It's just here, to be honest. Frame Driver, PSY Frame Driver. If you see this card in your opening hand, like, I think we can all agree this is such a brick. Like, what are you supposed to do with this card? Like, it's completely useless unless it's attached with the actual Frame Gear Gamma itself. So yeah, that completely useless in my eyes. So that's why I don't play it. And as soon as you control a monster anyway, you can't really do anything. Plus, okay, an additional thing that I should mention, if you do choose to play Frame Gear Gamma and you end up, you know, using it to negate something on your turn, you cannot go into the transcode combo line because transcode cannot activate its effect. Essentially, you cannot special summon any monster except Cyburst monsters that turn. So even if it's before transcode was summoned or after, you cannot summon, you won't be able to use this effect basically to bring back a link monster from the graveyard, which essentially is the combo line that you have to go for if you want a strong end board. So yeah, that's why I don't play Gamma myself, but it is very strong against us. So if you do find you're in the mirror match, I suppose it's a good card to continue, but I don't use it myself. Call by the Grave. Only reason I use this card is for Maxi. Other than that, it can come in like pretty well against decks that use effects in their graveyard, like Sprite. They love to send Angler, Nimble Angler, and then you know, use that to summon the beavers. So yeah, it can come in clutch in those situations, but I don't think it's highly necessary. It's only for Maxi, and until this card is banned, I'm going to keep it in. Ash is okay. I will say I think it's lost value as time has gone on. A lot of people love to play Fenrir and bait the Ash, and even if you don't fall for the Ash, fall for the bait, so to speak, it isn't a great card, just because in my eyes what you're doing is you get one negate, and a lot of decks are built to play around Ash now because it's just such a common card. It's a staple, so everyone's going to use it and everyone needs to figure out ways to work around it. And look, if you brick, then yeah, this card could, you know, stop all plays, but in a lot of cases, especially with Mathmech, we have that combination line to go around it. So yeah, keeping it in just for Maxi for now, but at a future date, if this card gets banned, done. Yeah, this card, I'm not even going to bother explaining. You can read the card effect here. Just, you draw a card every time they special summon, and in my opinion, this card 100% should be banned. It is way too strong. It's definitely the strongest card in the game. It's just, yeah, I don't even know how else to phrase it really. The fact that it hasn't been banned is quite a mystery. I understood it in the tier 0 format against Tillerman, but right now it's, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of boring. If I play, when I've won games by just playing Maxi and they don't have the out and they scoop because like they can't afford for me to have such a great card economy, I just, yeah, it just feels shit really. It's not really you're not really playing the game. You just, you know, you activated this silly insect and then yeah, you've gone from there. But yeah, that's enough on that one. Droll and Lockbird. So this is the one I actually wanted to say for last. This is a very unusual card to have in a Cyburst deck. You don't really see it in a lot of the deck list, especially from over the seasons where I've kind of checked what people use to get to Master 1. But this card is so slept on because everyone prepares for Maxi. Unfortunately, if they do have Call by the Grave and you don't have Maxi to bait it, then yeah, they can use it on that. But the slim chance that you're going to see these two cards in your hand versus seeing Droll, like, I'm not saying the probability is better for Droll, but I'm just saying that in the case scenario that you do have this specific card, when you do have this card, it's not very high. And like I said, people love to bait Ash using Fenrir, and it is hilarious when they go for the bait. I just draw after they've drawn the second Fenrir, which is the common thing every time, and now they can't search any of their main engine their cards. And it happens a lot with Dragon Link, as well as, what's the other one? Punk. Yeah, so Punk use Fenrir a lot to bait the Ash and then go into their synchros, whatever. But it's totally useless, because whenever they make Baron and they can't go into the rest of their combo line, Baron is one negate, is one only negate. Bait it out with something not so important. They don't know when to use it, so they'll just try and use it on what they consider key. Like I said, bait them out, and then yeah, you just swing for game really. It's very, very simple from there. The other example was Dragon Link. So I made an error on my post on Master Duel Meta by saying Bystials are not meta. I'm very wrong about that. Bystials are very much still meta, but they're not as dangerous as they used to be. When I say meta, I just mean that everyone tries to incorporate it a little bit, but I see Kashtira more now than I do Bystials. But in the case of what I'm saying before I go off topic is, with Dragon Link, let's say they use Bystial Lubellion to search for, what's the ultra rare one? I've forgotten what the ultra rare one is, but if you know it, then you'll know it. Once they search for it, I just use Droll, and now they cannot go into Boot Set to launch, Dragon's Ravine. They can't really add any cards to hand. It doesn't from their main deck, and that's the whole point of Dragon Link, to keep extending into more cards into your hand, so you can keep summoning them and then going from there really. And it's completely pointless. They might be able to set up a Borreload Savage Dragon, but that is one negate per turn, bait it out like I said before, and then swing for game. Droll is an incredibly strong card. I think it's very much slept on, and even against decks like Mathmech, if this card is put onto Mathmech will lose, because you cannot, a lot of our cards that we need are in the deck, and we have to combo extend to retrieve them and then build up the end board, or even build up the Omni Negate, OTK line. So yeah, this card, very strong. And I'd say last example is Purely. With Purely play Droll themselves, but I don't think they expect other people to play Droll. So once they try and get one more quick spell card, because that's the whole point of their deck, this card will kill that deck, because they're trying to keep summoning more and more of those quick spell cards to use as material for their Xyz monsters, and then this card just completely flattens it from there. So yeah, that's basically my synopsis about all these hand traps, and this is why I use these ones. Just very quick. I say very quick, but again, I'm sorry. I will be rambling on a bit. It's just to add a bit of detail, so it might come across as a bit of a monologue. So with Effect Veiler, I used to play Effect Veiler. It is a really good card, but just like Ash, it does lose its value in the fact that you can't, decks know how to play around this. It's not once per turn, which is great, but that means you just have to have more of them in your hand, and that kind of defeats the point of, you know, having something that negates the effect. You want it to stop the combo line, not, you know, stop little bits and have them work around it. I remember playing against Sprite a lot with Effect Veiler. It's okay. It doesn't, unless they brick, this card doesn't present a lot of value. So between this and Ash, I'm gonna play Ash, because Ash needs to stop Maxi. And that's just the simple fact of the matter there. Joel does a lot better of a job in defeating the combo than I'd say Effect Veiler does. And then lastly, I remember using Ghost Spell, that's why I have it built. So I had Ghost Spell last season when Bystials were a lot more prominent. But this season, I don't know, maybe I'm just lucky, but I really haven't seen a lot of Bystials. I don't find there's someone that commented that Bystials are seen in most decks, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think there's a lot of Dragon Link going around. That's why it's tier 1. You're going to see it in so many decks, but I don't think it's as prominent as Kashtira. I see Fenrir in most decks, but look, again, I'm not going to say that person's wrong. I think it's just a case I got very lucky and didn't encounter it as much as other people. So maybe that's the case, but I personally don't play this card because I don't see the need for that extra protection. And against other decks, it can be used in situational like matchups, like Labyrinth, use it against Big Welcome, or Sprite, you can use it against Nimble Beaver, or what's the other one? I think it's Sprite Elf. Yeah, Sprite Elf from Summoning from the Graveyard. It can be, but doesn't really do that much, in my opinion. It's not, the value for it is definitely decreased. So that is why I don't play that anymore. So, but yeah, that's just in a nutshell the hand traps. And then I'll move straight on to the spells and traps. As you can see here, look, only 6 cards in total, and you know, only 4 different cards. So this one should be simple. Signet Mining, this is just to get to your Mathmech Circular if you don't already have it in hand. Or if you do have Mathmech Circular in hand and you've played through all the hand traps and you've gotten to your super factorial combo where you have, you know, minimum 3 monsters, or 2, depending on if you're going to use terahertz to send the last one that you need on this turn or the next turn, depending. But let's say you do play through the hand traps and now you have a free search using Silent Mining. I always search for microcoder. It's always better to search microcoder and then use it from your hand as material rather than putting it in the graveyard. I mean, this only happened last season. It hasn't happened to me once this season, but it's still like a risk. But people who have Bestials, they can just, not negate, they can just banish the microcoder before you try and resummon it with Splash Mage, and that just puts you in a bad spot because ideally you want the Omni Negate and you don't want to just have Splash Mage on board. Kind of sucks when you're just stuck with that card because it's not a code talker. So even if you do have the silent conflict, you're not going to be able to trigger it. And yeah, just highly unfortunate really. But yeah, that's just Silent Mining in a nutshell. 1 level 4 lower. And I mean, once you learn the deck, you'll kind of choose what to search as how you see him fit. I see a lot of people asking me questions on the Master Meta comments on what I would do in certain situations. And the simple fact is, unless I have a lot of detail about certain scenarios you're describing, I can't give you the best out. I can only tell you what I've done. And if you agree whether it's good or not is up to you, but it worked for me. I won my games, I got to Master 1, so I'm just sharing my experience as it is. Now, Mathmech Equation, this card is basically Mathmech Monster Reborn, and it's great. I never really used the 100 attack, 1000 attack. It's just a combo extender really. It's really good. It has come in handy when you have Diameter in the graveyard. You summon this, and then when you make your Allen Burschen, you have that negate for the turn. And I love setting up the negate for in case my opponent has Nibiru or has Maxi, because then they draw into Nibiru and it can just trigger immediately for some reason. And yeah, just good to have that negation just to kind of stop. And yeah, that's basically Mathmech Equation. You're always going to search this if you already have Super Factorial in hand. But in every situation, when Circular is triggered, you want this card. If Circular gets negated, or you get ashed, which is the same thing, you're not going to get this card off the first draw. You have to use the Allen Burschen to get it, because this card is more important than the 3rd monster. And the reason why I say this is because now that you have terahertz, you can just send the 3rd monster either on your turn or at the beginning of the next turn. If you get ashed on either of those, look, it is what it is. They drew the owl, and hopefully you already baited Ash out before they're able to do this, but that really is just how it goes. The game is a point of luck. It's a best of 1, so yeah, whatever you have is what you have. Just if you draw the out, you draw the out. But yeah, this card is amazing. I've never once used it to go into the synchro, and I don't even use the synchro, which I'll touch on in a moment. And I think I already gave enough of the detail with Silent Conflict, but I guess there's a last detail for it. This card came in so clutch, when I just put it on the board if I had bricked, and having Droll kind of stop their combos, or if the opponent cannot OTK me. This card comes in so great, because if on the next turn I'm able to build just the simplest Code Talker monster, sometimes building into Trans Code Talker and then resummoning, and they try to either negate it or destroy it in some way, because I've already got this on the floor, it completely breaks my opponent's defense up, because like I said, look, this card banishes, and then on top of that, your opponent cannot activate cards or cards with the same original name until the end of the next turn. So against cards like Runic Fountain for the Runic archetype. This card is amazing. I always let the Runic Fairy come out. I don't know the name of it, but I always let the Fairy come out. I always let them try and activate it, and then I just completely wipe it, because now even if they get it on their next turn, they cannot use it, so it's completely useless. And they always scoop when I get rid of Fountain, because how are they going to get it back? So the deck isn't built for that. And yeah, quite happy with this card as a whole. But yeah, that's pretty much spells and traps. There isn't really a lot to go into. But lastly, I'm going to go into the extra deck, which I'm just going to show right now. And right here is the last part of the video. I apologize if you felt this was a bit counterintuitive or counterproductive to have it split into separate sections, but I think it was a lot easier for myself to create this video. Like I said before, I'm not a content creator, so to have this structure was a lot easier. And I just thought it'd be easier to have less distraction as to what's in front of me. So I'll just go through them one by one. I only play one Laplation and one Allan Bershon, because ideally you don't really want to have to go into two. It's quite a slow play going second if you're trying to go into the Allan Bershon and your opponent has already set up a board full of negates and other cards that will interrupt your play. Laplation is your best card when you've set up your end board going first, because then this card is going to ideally rip 3 cards, so 1 from the monsters, 1 from the spell and trap zone, and then 1 from your hand. It's just amazing for that. And before the battle, so when you go into battle phase to trigger evenly matched, I always summon Laplation to try and negate the evenly matched. I don't like to pull it from hand. I like to pull a different card from their hand, negate the evenly matched, pray they don't have a second one, because otherwise that means I'm going to have to use my Signet Conflict, and it's unfortunately very, very wasted. And then they've lost that battle phase, so I'm depending on the rest of my board to essentially just stop them from building a good board, because then once they pass the turn or scoop, then the rest is like up to me to just shoot for game really. And that's why Terahertz is so amazing, just such high damage. I wish there was a way to make this thing piercing damage. There is that card that helps the Dino deck, but setting that up would be ridiculously complicated and not really worth your time. So yeah, I would just leave it at that. Now, Aggregator. So I was really mixed. I had really mixed feelings about having this card in my deck, because I just didn't think about the scenarios where this would come useful, only because when you send it to the graveyard, it cannot be activated in the same chain link in response to a different card on the field. So if they activate a quick play spell or even a spell card, I cannot send this card to the graveyard and then this card will negate that card. It doesn't work that way. It happens in a separate chain. So you can only use it on monsters that do not trigger their effect upon summon, or continuous spell or traps or field spells, of course. Those are the best times to use it. So stuff like Kashtira, it's amazing to use it on them, because think about if you don't have, if you've never used a Kashtira deck or you've never seen it, basically when they special summon, it can only be done when they have no monsters. So once they summon Fenrir, it's now a case of, do they summon other Kashtira monsters using Birth if they have it, or it's particularly useful to negate stuff like Fenrir, because when they summon Fenrir, and when you see here, Heat Soul only has 2300 attack, so Fenrir being 2400, a lot of players, what they tend to do is they'll try and swing into Heat Soul, so it basically means you don't have that Signet Conflict of negate anymore, because they're going to know you have it when you start searching for it. And yeah, it's better when they don't, but about, I'd say 95% of the time they're going to know you have it because you are searching for it. But yeah, anyway, so my point is that they're going to try and swing in, get rid of that only negate that you have, and then that's when you trigger Super Factorial, trigger your Signet Conflict. If they try to negate it in any way or try to banish one of the monsters you're summoning, and then yeah, you just wipe the board and they lose that battle phase. It's similar to them using Evenly Matched. That's why it's so great. But yeah, that's why I use Aggregator and I kept it in. It really has come in clutch, and it is that additional negate. Once we get that Cyberse fusion monster though, yeah, I think the game will change for Cyberse decks. They might become tier 2, if they're not already tier 3. So yeah, or go tier 3 from rogue, depending on where they are at the minute. I consider them rogue just because I don't see them as much. But yeah, like I said, other people probably having way different experiences to me. So that's pretty much my 2 cents on that. Link Spider. So I had someone comment why I use it, and I completely understand their confusion because it is such a random card to have. But Nibiru being so strong in the meta at the minute, hence why I bought 3 but don't put any of them in my deck. But anyway, my point is that once you get Nibiru, you're given a token from your opponent, and essentially this is to keep you back in the combo line. When you look at other Cyberse monsters, it's not Cyberse, and that requires normal monsters. So these 2 cards actually, in particular, Splash Mage and G-Golem, they require 2 Cyberse monsters. So you won't be able to use the token itself, because the token, as you can see, is a rock-like monster. And it won't affect your play going back into transcode and then summoning something else from the graveyard, because you didn't special summon the monster, your opponent did. And you're just using that monster to create Link Spider, which is a Cyberse monster. And like I said, this is a game of chance. So I've been in a scenario where I've been Nibiru'd, but I had Max C. So what I did was I triggered Max C. I got 2 additional draws from their Nibiru, from them summoning the token to my side and Nibiru on their side of the field. So that was 2 additional draws. And I just went into Link Spider and I had 2 extenders in my hand, so it was great. I think one of them was Parallel Exceed, which made it even better because it just summoned itself, summoned another one of itself, and I just went in for the same combo line and then just attacked the game, and it was so simple from there. So I do consider Link Spider clutch. If you don't want it in, look, by all means, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just sharing my experience. You can play as you want, but if you get Nibiru'd, good luck getting out of the situation, because a lot of the extenders I use require a Cyberse monster to be on board, like Secretary can just special summon itself, and yeah, ideally you want something that can help you stay in the game. So that's why I play this. Armorage. The only reason I play Armorage, forget the effect, I've never once used this effect in my life. The only reason I have this card is in case you brick. It really is a last case scenario. Sometimes you have to use your Handtraps because they all have less than 1000 attack. Summon them, go into Almirage, and then hopefully you have what's the name? Hopefully you have Parallel Exceed. Sorry, lost on my brain there. So if you have Parallel Exceed, you can go into the rest of your combo line, which is the Mathmech line from Alan Bershan, Circular, etc, etc. So that's why you have that. Now Lingaribo, I honestly wanted to play 2 of this card because Labyrinth is one of the worst matchups for this deck. Having, I think it's Labyrinth Lovely, and then the new one as well. It's such a strong deck overall. It really is impressive, like what they can pull off. And having cards like D-Barrier in their deck line is incredible, because you can just negate the effects of all Xyz monsters. So if you try to kind of rebuild your combo using Alan Bershan, it just completely kills it. And then of course, you can't respond to their normal traps with card effects. So even if you do have Ash whilst Lovely's on the field, sorry, I should have said, if Lovely's on the field and they're able to have that card economy to have the traps on the field, you cannot activate stuff like Ash to negate another card coming in. Yeah, it's just a mess really. I remember having Final Sigma and I lost because this player just kept using Big Welcome, putting cards back in his hand, resummoning them with Big Welcome to get Lovely, and then Lovely would resummon the trap card. It just was an endless loop and I just couldn't get out of it. And I didn't deck out, but I ended up, I think they summoned the one with 3000 attack, and if you don't know, Final Sigma also has 3000 attack. He just crashed them so that it just destroyed both of them, and then yeah, it was completely game from there for me. I couldn't really do anything else. But yeah, Labyrinth, very strong deck. Consider playing 2 Lingaribo. Tillerance is not really a threat anymore in my eyes, or maybe even most people. But when they have Sulliek on board, I loved having this card on the board, because you can just banish the Sulliek and they're not going to get it back, because unless they mill the specific cards to get cards from the grave, from that banished zone, then yeah, you put yourself in a lot stronger light. You save yourself from a negation, because that's what Sullied does. And unfortunately, it doesn't work against Crime. Crime is a counter trap, so like Steinert Conflict, unless you have a counter trap set to respond, nothing can respond to that card. It's almost like super polymerization. Super polymerization has that, you know, written in effect that nothing can respond to it. So it's kind of irritating, but like I said, you play with what you get, and yeah, good luck. Yeah, so the reason I play Code Talker, there is another link to Code Talker, but it's not really a relevant card. It doesn't matter. Actually, no, it matters. I would say you need to have this Code Talker because of the way the arrows point. It's just really important to have it on your side of the field. That way, when you do link summon, if you link summon another monster, you can do so. If you have nothing that it points, if you don't have open zones that these cards point to, you can't link summon further, and well, that just disrupts everything for you. So it's really important to have this. And sorry, what I was trying to say, the reason I have this is for microcoder, because when you use that ability to send microcoder or use code generator to send microcoder to the graveyard, and then, you know, follow up on a separate turn, it's just to extend your combo and allow you to get into either Steinert Conflict through microcoder or send something to the graveyard with code generator. It's just really important to have that option, because sometimes you're faced with multiple hand traps, and unfortunately this deck, I've lost to just like a very relevant point. I have lost to a guy who only had hand traps in his hand, and I know that because he activated all of them, and on his following turn he just had the one, I can't remember the archetype he played, but he had the one card that he needed just to go into his entire combo line and just OTK me. So this deck really can lose to hand traps. You just got to pick them very carefully. Make sure you try and bait them out if you can, but if they have all hand traps, then yeah, GG's. It is what it is. But yeah, that's all for Code Talker. Now, people might disagree why I have this card in my hand, in my deck. No one's commented on it yet, and to be honest, I'm glad to do so. I'm glad to explain it now anyway. So a lot of people love to play, so it's called, yeah, Eccentric. Now, I completely understand why. This card, not only can it destroy a spell or trap, it can be used as I'm going to call it middleman again, using Small World to get to the, you know, Mathmech line or cards that you need. I completely understand and respect that, but in the cases where you come across a deck that plays something like Necro Valley, so that type of floodgate completely kills this deck. Same with, what's another floodgate? Maybe there can only be one. It really, really sucks when you need this card and you don't draw it, or if you don't have Small World to get into it, because you're so dependent on those things. But with Nightmare Phoenix, you're only dependent on having two monsters with different names, which more often than you're gonna have with the Mathmech line, because it's not about the original name being Mathmech, it's about making sure that you're not using two circulars or two additions to create this monster. And then when you do, like it says, you discard one card, destroy one spell or trap on the field, and this card has come in clutch so many times against Necro Valley, because no one really expects you to have it. And like I said, this game is about luck, and it's not about trying to play, you know, trying to trick your opponent into mind games. Like, they're not really going to know what you use anyway, and it doesn't really matter if they use Diablosis or what's the name of it? Kashtira Unicorn to look at your extra deck. Like, how you use your combos is how you use them, and this is just how I use mine. Just bear in mind that because this is a fiend monster, you will not be able to use the transcode effect to special summon. This just as a reminder, as how I said it earlier with Gamma, like, you really are Cyburst locked for the rest of the turn if you intend on using this card. Just make sure that you're not going to special summon this. Or if you are going to special summon this, just make sure you have the relevant extenders, because you're not going to be able to use this effect. But anyway, yeah, it's having Nightmare Phoenix came in clutch so many times, so I'm very happy to have this in my deck. And only once have I used this effect. It was co-linked once, and I drew one card, and it just helps. Like, you get way more extenders, helps to kind of build that last combo line, and then yeah, just go in for game with terahertz. Update jammer, I don't think I really need to explain this one, but if you don't know, it just allows your access code to attack twice, and hopefully you build it up with 5,300 attack. And when I say twice, I mean not just twice on monsters, like twice directly, one on a monster, and then if it's no more monsters, you can go direct on the second attack. It's really good. It's kind of better than terahertz effect, where you can just battle monster. Yeah, see, this guy can attack monsters a number of times. So, but you kind of want, you know, it to just have an additional battle phase, which would be great for this card. But that's basically update jammer. I'd say the combo line, the OTK line for access code and update jammer, it is great. However, it takes a lot more material to get into and is a lot easier to disrupt. This being hit with imperm is an ugly thing to happen, but it kind of is natural. One thing you can do to protect yourself from imperm, and I don't even understand why this ruling works the way it does, but it just, yeah, so I'll just explain it. So if you send multiplication to the graveyard and you have access code toolkit in your main monster zone, you activate multiplication and then access code. Remember, nothing can respond to access code's effects. So once he's summoned and determines how much attack he's going to get, multiplication will double its attack. So it'll go to 10,600 from 5,300, or, well, my maths is not great, but if you go from 4,300, is 4,300? Yeah, 4,300 to 8,600. Yes, my maths is okay. To 8,600. Even if that card gets impermed, it won't lose the attack. Now, I still don't understand why, but look, take the benefit where it is. But like I said, it's a very niche scenario where you're going to be able to send multiplication to the graveyard for cost. I even bought Foolish Burial for it, but it was a real waste of crafting material, because when am I going to be able to secure that card? And yeah, I prepared for a situation that was never going to happen. But yeah, that's the only point I can make on that. Great OTK line, especially if you're trying to clear the board and then swing for game. In my opinion, if they have a spell or trap on the field that's face up and isn't going to present an issue by destroying cards around it, or, you know, so on and so on, personally, I wouldn't destroy. I would keep one spell or trap on the field, just to kind of make sure that they can't activate imperm from hand if you haven't done the multiplication line, because it does just mess up with access code. He goes back to 2,300, and even if you swing twice, that's 4,600, and I mean, in most cases, that's not game. So yeah, just be aware of that. Splash Mage, I almost played 2 of this card. I see a lot of people do it, but I don't know. You only have 15 slots, so you do have to just pick what fits for you. I was trying it at some point, but I never used the second one, so it did feel like a waste, and tried to find space for something else to work instead, and this is why I ended up with. But yeah, this card, look, it's so important for your going first combo to set up the Silent Conflict with the Code Talker. So you must have this card in your extra deck. I don't think I've seen a single Mathmech deck without it. It really is super important. And then G-Golem. So the reason why I like G-Golem, but have rarely used it this season, I used it more last season, is because it's just great for resummoning transcode on the next turn. He can reuse his effect to summon a Cyburst monster, whether it's Heat Soul or Splash Mage, and then Splash Mage can also use his effect again to summon him for the graveyard, so on and so on. And then you can just go into your next best line, which last season was access code. I used to run 2 of these, as you can see. I have 2 crafted, but now it's just a case of you go into terahertz, Dark Food terahertz. But one thing you'll notice from this season is, with an end board like having terahertz already on, you won't need to build him. So this card really is just a contingency if you're left with Transcode Talker co-linked with Heat Soul, because then you can go G-Golem using these 2 as materials, resummon this, and then go straight into Dark Fluid. But what I was trying to explain is that it's not really that relevant, because let's say you do have these 2 co-links on board. The aim of the well, the aim of the game is to bring Laplation out on the next turn anyway, so you're going to have those 3 cards to summon Terahertz anyway, so this is extremely situational. You can switch it out, but I don't know, I think it is very beneficial. Sometimes you get hand trapped a lot and your opponent just has constant interruptions. And one thing people don't really know, because I don't think it's a very common line, is if you have this card resummon Transcode Talker, this card can attack twice, and I think it gets 3,400 attack, something like that. So 28, yeah, it gets 3,400 attack, can attack twice, so 6,800 damage if you go for direct. And yeah, it's a pretty good card. Transcode, I feel like I've spoken about this card enough in affiliation to other cards, so I'm not going to really speak about it too much. Heat Soul. So this card is basically what you want on your end board, no matter what. I've never wanted just Transcode Talker, even if it has Silent Conflict. You want this card because it gives you that drawing power. So as soon as you summon it, you can draw 1 card, and then on your opponent's turn, draw 1 card, and then back on your 3rd turn, so your 2nd turn but 3rd turn of the duel, you draw another card. So that's 3 card economy that you're adding each time, and it's really strong because you never know what you're going to pull into, and it really has been beneficial. I have a replay on my profile, which I'll link the profile code so you can go look at it. It's against someone called Shady, S-H-A-D-I. Just take a look. That's like the ideal end board, but I'll go into a separate video on that anyway. But yeah, Heat Soul, incredible. I've never once used the 2nd ability. Maybe someone in the comments can explain to me a strategy that they use, but I've never once gone into that line. I'm a bit scared to try it and then I just lose the game, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And then, look, I don't even need to explain access code. I suppose if I'm going to add something about him, I noticed that this other YouTuber doesn't do this thing, and look, I'm just being a nitpicky freak, but it's so irritating. So when you send Update Jammer or Multiplication, or both, to the graveyard in summoning for access code, you should always trigger Update Jammer or Multiplication first, but always update those two, always activate their effects before you activate access code, because access code can chain block it, and because of its effect that nothing can activate in response, you are guaranteed the effects of Update Jammer, so attack twice, and Multiplication, which means that, you know, it's going to have that double attack damage. So it's really important that you do it in that order. I'm not saying it's common that people are going to have Call by the Grave or somehow negate something in the graveyard, but better safe than sorry. It costs you nothing to do it in that order, and in the case that, you know, they do have Call by the Grave, you save yourself from doing so anyway. Like they can't do anything about it afterwards. So yeah, I would just do it in that particular order. And then finally, Terahertz. So what I was thinking of a brief way to explain it, but I'll try and keep it as short as I can. If you are 1 Mathmech short from your super factorial line, you can send a Mathmech at the beginning of your turn when you summon it, if you haven't already got Microcoder. But I would always prioritize Microcoder over the Mathmech line if you can, because you can just send another Mathmech in the following turn. You can't send Microcoder in the following turn because you're not going to be able to resummon it, go into a Code Talker monster, and then get that Silent Conflict. It's really important that you do the Microcoder first, and then on the following turn send. Let's say you don't get Diameter from Alan Bershin, but you get the Super Factorial from Circular. Just send the Diameter the next turn. If they have Ash, then look, it is what it is. Like, they have the negate, they have but you have a decode, you have Silent Conflict for this reason. So if they don't allow you to go in that line, it does feel like you've wasted the counter on it. But look, in the case that they don't have a negate, you are able to send Diameter. You've now secured your Super Factorial line, and you have the Silent Conflict on board. And on top of that, because of Heat Soul, I've got replays where you can see that I got Imperm in my my starting board. I've got Crossout Designator in my starting board, so even if they try to Call by the Grave after I Super Factorial, it's a complete dud. Like, they can't do anything about it. And yeah, I'm trying to think of other things. I apologize if I've rambled on quite a bit throughout this video. I'm trying to add as much detail as I can to kind of save you from asking questions, because I know it can get kind of annoying where I've missed little gaps here and there. But in a nutshell, that is the basis of Mathmech as a whole. Well, if you've made it this far, I suppose I owe you a thank you. Thank you for sticking around and checking out the video. I've highlighted a lot that I'm not a content creator, but it was a lot of fun to make this video, and I did appreciate people commenting on the original Master Duel meta post. It was fun to play this this deck variant and kind of share my experience with it. If you have any questions at all, I'm more than happy to respond to them in the comments, and if there are any additional videos you need me to make, I'm more than happy to do them. They're a lot of fun for me. I don't really consider it a job in any way. It's just, you know, fun to kind of share your experience. A video that I will be making is, I believe that there are 4 combo lines, so in order of, you know, strength, of which I think is the best and which I think is the bare minimum that you need. I'm gonna just release a video just showing the combo lines. I might not do a commentary on it. I'll let you guys decide if that's something you want. I can just be silent and then just show the combo line and put written text on the board just to kind of show you through it. But as a whole, look, again, thank you so much for viewing and taking the time to watch, and look, I hope you have great games. Okay, see ya.